She called the move one of 3 classic defenses for drunk driving that the corporal had been taught by the RCMP.
He got a reprimand and forfeited 1 day's time off. When the women launched a lawsuit, the RCMP ordered an internal review of
7.5 months ago, it was the scene of the first Independent Investigations Office case in BC.
The RCMP has been under intense scrutiny after the CBC revealed a number of cases of sexual harassment and bullying within the force.
And welcome back to Radio Free Canada. We're updating you on the Justice for Buddy campaign that we've got going on in Kelowna right now.
And we need some justice because there seems to be a gross miscarriage of justice occurring all throughout our beautiful province.
So why is there injustice? One of the reasons is major media is not carrying the story, not giving you background on police brutality. That's why we're here. This is Radio Free Canada.
Corporal Monty Robinson has not offered one word of remorse for his actions the night a motorcyclist died, and he was silent again today. But the victim's mother wailed with relief in the courtroom as she heard the verdict, guilty. Robinson was driving home from a Halloween party with his 2 children the night of the crash. He's trained in first aid but never checked on the victim who lay bleeding in the road. Instead, he left the scene, saying he needed to walk his kids home. When he returned, he told the constable on scene he drank 2 shots of vodka at home to calm his nerves, and he lied about how many beers he drank. Robinson's defense was that he is an alcoholic and couldn't help himself. But the judge said the veteran officer knew exactly what he was doing when he drank that vodka. She called the move one of 3 classic defenses for drunk driving that the corporal had been taught by the RCMP. Drink after the accident and no one can tell how drunk you were behind the wheel.
The thing that's disturbed me all the way along, which is the calculating nature of this person.
Robinson has been suspended with pay since the crash and still faces charges for perjury for his testimony about the night he led the group of officers who tasered Robert Jakanski at Vancouver International Airport. Now, the top Mountie in BC plans to seek Robinson's dismissal.
And I can tell you, it obviously does not meet our standards of conduct.
Robinson is free on bail until sentencing. Then, the Crown will ask the judge to consider that this was a police officer who broke a trust. He faces a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Lisa Johnson, CBC News, New Westminster, BC.
We kept the heat on. We made sure that we kept things going until Jeff Mantler lost his paycheck. He lost his lawyer.
This guy was suspended with pay?
With pay after killing somebody.
Yeah.
That's the way the RCMP works. That's the way the judiciary works. And this guy took the cheesiest way out that there was. As an RCMP officer in British Columbia, did you hear about it in Kelowna, though?
Not a word. And, you know, I love the spin. It does not meet the RCMP standards. Well...
What standards?
He had to come out and say that?
I mean, come on. Where are we at here when you can kill somebody, obviously cover it up, and you're still walking the streets?
They intend to seek his dismissal?
I think this guy should have lost his paycheck, but all 4 officers in the Robert Jakanski case literally got away with murder. That's in British Columbia. That's the RCMP, and we just hired more of these guys in Kelowna.
And gave them a raise.
Yes. Well, actually, we didn't know we were giving them a raise.
Well,
remember?
No, that didn't come out until after the contract was signed.
Kristen Clark, we got you. Hey, we're going to be here for you to make sure you're informed because we have solutions. And a major rally coming up May 18th right here at Kelowna at City Hall, 2 p.m. Show up with your signs, show up with your voice, and get ready to change the way the police are doing business.
Please, no pitchforks or torches.
We're just not there yet. What do you got for me, brother?
Well, you know, there's that ongoing sexual harassment suite that's still being investigated within the Old Boy Network.
So this is add to the list. This is things that Blaine Gaffney missed while he was doing his little, unobserved newscast. This is Radio Free Canada. Check it out. These are the facts.
Their stories are explosive and still so very raw. 4 female RCMP officers working undercover. Similar allegations of being assaulted by the same male colleague. The women kept the allegations secret for years. When they finally did come forward, they say they were shunned by RCMP colleagues and badly served by the force's internal disciplinary process. The male officer was never charged criminally, but admitted to lesser violations and cut a deal. He got a reprimand and forfeited 1 day's time off. When the women launched a lawsuit, the RCMP ordered an internal review of how their cases had been handled. That has never been made public until now. Ian Atkins is the retired RCMP superintendent who conducted the review.
If I was conducting a hearing and I believed that the officer was dishonest,
and he just admitted to being dishonest,
I would seriously consider dismissal.
You think that's what should have happened?
In this case, probably yes.
Instead, a year later, Robert Blundell was promoted. In his first television interview, new RCMP Commissioner Bob Polson didn't want to debate the decision.
I like to think that the Blundell case has been resolved.
But he did promise under his watch, discipline and accountability would be key.
I'm committed to that, and we today agreed, the commanding officers, and I've given instructions to them to go forward and make that live. So that's going to be happening.
Today, the new commissioner made a pledge to get more women into the RCMP. Those who've had first-hand experience with how the force deals with issues like harassment say if the boss is serious, he's got a lot to change first.
The one thing to really remember out of this is that the RCMP has been aware of these major, serious problems about systemic sexual harassment since 2007.
And has chosen to cover it up.
And do nothing.
No.
Okay, now remember, they haven't said that they've changed the way that they're training people at Depot. They haven't said that they've changed the way that they're training their officers when they get here, when they get out of Depot. And they haven't announced anything like a sensitivity training or anything like this. However, in Yellowknife, after they killed or they watched a guy die in the police lockup, they said that, well, the RCMP requires sensitivity training and, you know, how to respect. You should train officers on how to respect citizens.
That's just absurd.
You have to train officers on how to respect citizens. You have to train officers on how to respect women. Where are these guys coming from?
Well, I don't know whether they get it. It kind of sounds like the Vatican.
Oh, my God. And, yes, they do the same thing the Vatican does. Get caught touching somebody over here, we'll just transfer you over there. And you can see how well that's working out for them.
I wonder where they got that idea from.
It comes down to the corporate application of law. If you were to hire cooks in a restaurant who spit in your food all the time, would you fire him or transfer him to another McDonald's?
I think I would fire him.
Okay, so.
Yeah, well.
I know, he goes,
what
here's
can you
another
do?
one.
They're cops.
Okay.
Well, actually, this is another example of, you know, the cops. Well, this actually was a civilian investigation of the cops. We'll see how well this worked out.
The Matters property east of Prince George seems peaceful today. 7.5 months ago, it was the scene of the first independent investigations office case in BC.
The IO was notified of the shooting within 20 minutes of the incident occurring. As most people know, it was our first day of operations. We just opened up that morning, and therefore this case was the first critical incident that we investigated.
Gregory Matters, a Bosnia war veteran who suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, was fatally shot by police on September 10, 2012. The investigation report reveals police were trying to arrest Matters after an alleged assault against his brother. Emergency response team members attended the property and found he was armed with a hatchet.
They then attempted to use the taser to effect his arrest and stop him from going back into a structure where he could barricade himself and cause further danger to themselves or himself. As a result, I felt that RCM policy permitted the use of the taser in this circumstance, and that the use of the taser to try and effect a safe arrest of Mr. Matters using less than lethal force.
The report by the IIO concludes there was no criminal wrongdoing by the North District RCMP officers. It references officer reports that Matters was non-compliant, brandishing a hatchet, and the taser was ineffective against him. The Matters family is saddened and disappointed with the report. Tracy Matters says one thing could bring the family peace at this time.
That there will be changes to policies, that people will be, better taken care of and better cared for, and that this doesn't happen to people, and that and that families like us, don't have to go through this tragic event.
The case is now in the hands of the Commission for Public Complaints against the RCMP, which has launched an investigation into the conduct of members involved.
So if you even check in on the logic for 1 second there, they killed him to prevent him from doing harm to himself or barricading himself away from the general public.
Wow. I mean, the thought processes are mind-boggling.
I mean, it's like when they were searching for Donner down in the States there, and they put up a sign that said, Donner, turn yourself in or we'll keep killing citizens.
Well, that's pretty much the LAPD's MO anyway.
It's kind of amazing. And this is the RCMP in action again. The mother in the case, or the family member in the case here, says, well, at least this is going to result in changes, but no changes.
No, meanwhile, people are still dying and being beat up at the hands of police officers.
And nothing's changing ever with these guys. We've got a commissioner that says, well, I've given them orders to clean things up, as if they didn't give orders before to clean things up.
Really, yes. Well, apparently there's been legislation enacted to give him a little more power to punish some of these cops.
So let's run this quick so you're informed. Remember, we're not keep making out commercials that say, trust us. We want you to use your intelligence.
Last month, RCMP Commissioner Bob Paulson made a public plea to strengthen the RCMP Act. Today, the government responded. Vic Taves arrived at a late-announced news conference armed with legislation that would give the Commissioner of the RCMP more power to discipline, even fire officers. The RCMP has been under intense scrutiny after the CBC revealed a number of cases of sexual harassment and bullying within the force. Complaints from female officers were dismissed by a disciplinary board. Some of the accused officers didn't lose their jobs or a day's pay. In some cases, they were transferred or promoted. Commissioner Bob Paulson went public last month, saying in an open letter that under the current RCMP Act, he couldn't control his members' conduct. Now, with the new changes, he says, he can, and he will. A little late, says former RCMP officer Krista Carl. She alleged she was sexually assaulted on the job, and her case was settled out of court.
I think that's a really big change for the RCMP to not be investigating themselves, because it speaks to the fact that it's an old boys network and it's an old boys culture. And how do you change that culture? An act of legislation can simply not make that happen. That's got to be instituted in a matter of time.
The legislation also calls for more transparency when it comes to public complaints about the RCMP. A new civilian commission will replace the old one in an effort to provide better accountability. This was just one of two pieces of legislation announced today, Peter, all in an effort to get some last-minute business done before the House rises for the summer tomorrow.
All right, Lori, thanks very much. Lori Graham in Ottawa tonight.
Well, it seems they're up to their usual tricks, trying to get a piece of legislation passed and then get out of town before anybody has a chance to look at it.
And, if you do take a look at the legislation, there's no mention of sexual harassment in there at all.
So how's that going to fix the problem?
And you're going to attract more women into this force when we've got a woman who stood up in BC and said, if you're thinking of going into the RCMP, run in the opposite direction like your hair is on fire.
Yeah, I know. You really would have a better chance of surviving in the criminal networks.
Real women will not put up with the RCMP. And they're so far behind modern society where women have equal rights and they deserve them. And then, they're just treated like a piece of meat while they're surfing porn, putting dildos in their lockers, okay? And you read Maclean's magazine, they talk about the sexual dysfunction in the RCMP as being childish, a bunch of frat boys pulling pranks.
So it makes me wonder, what is the political ideology of the RCMP?
What do you think?
Well, they seem to resemble a lot of conservative mindset behaviors.
Yes.
Maybe a few there. I don't know. I could be wrong, though.
It's almost like the Old Boys Club is right in the PMO. I am Darren Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet.
You've been listening to an update on police brutality right here as we bring you the news that major media ignores. There are dots to connect here. This is the background. We've got more coming up. Stay tuned, and thanks for being part of the social revolution that's occurring. People are waking up to the government's BS. We're helping them wake up. Thanks for tuning in. The one thing to remember is that we are live in person May 18th at 2 p.m. at Kelowna City Hall as we take on police brutality in Kelowna. This is Justice for Buddy Tavares, May 18th, the long weekend, Saturday, 2 p.m., Kelowna City Hall, and we're there.